Ever since the success and release of the Doom reboot in 2016, we have seen a lot of retro-stylized first-person shooters. Dusk, Project Warlock and Iron Maiden, just to name a few of the more notable ones. And there are still plenty more to come. It's an exciting time to be a fan of the retro FPS. But if there is one retro-stylized FPS that I believe stands out from the crowd, that would be Indefatigable and New Blood Interactive's early access FPS game, A Medieval. A Medieval is a retro-stylized FPS game currently in early access and is being developed by Indefatigable and published by New Blood Interactive. It released in early access March 18th, 2018 and currently has 6 of the 7 episodes available to play, and is expected to release sometime in 2019. A Medieval is an excellent FPS game that's gameplay takes more from Hexen and Heretic over the more traditional styles of Doom and Quake, with creative, satisfying and impacting weapons, a large roster of enemies, fast-paced, action-packed gameplay, incredible atmosphere and soundtrack, fabulous visuals and 6 distinctive episodes. A Medieval is looking like it's going to be a step above the rest. You take on the role of the champion, the only mortal in over 1,000 years who overcame the Black Labyrinth and acquired its treasure, the Axe of the Black Labyrinth. With the Axe, the champion has gained passage to the Ancient Lands, a place that has become corrupt by an evil force. An evil so powerful that no champion, warrior or hero could stand against it. As the new champion, you must reclaim the weapons of the ancients and take back their lands, ultimately destroying the evil. If you are to be successful, the ancients will be eternally grateful. Like with many old school designed FPS games, the plot to A Medieval is thin and basic. It does its job of creating a setting and goal for the protagonist of the game, and that's about it. But A Medieval, like many of its kind, isn't a game you play for the story, you play it for the gameplay. Anyone who is a fan of the old school shooters will be immediately familiar with the workings of A Medieval's gameplay. You must battle your way through each of the levels, gruesomely killing hordes of enemies, finding secrets with supplies that aid you, and of course keys to unlock doors. A Medieval is divided into 6 unique episodes, each with its own unique environment and set of enemies. The 7th and final episode is still in development. A Medieval does give some freedom, not restricting the player to any particular order on how to complete the episodes to some degree. The first 2 episodes must be completed in succession, but the next 4 can be done in any order the player wants and are accessed through the portal hub. The first episode is Astral Equinox, where the player must fight against an order of knights that I believe worship the moon. The second episode is Domain of the Sentinels. Here the player goes up against sentinels that have become corrupted and transformed by an evil force of Lovecraftian nature. The third episode, Solar Solstice, has the player going up against an order of fire knights who worship the sun. The fourth is Sacred Pass, an ancient realm of stone temples filled with shadow creatures and stone golems. The fifth episode is The Forge, a technological advanced realm of machines. And the sixth episode is The Arcane Expanse, a mystical realm of mages and magical warriors. Each of the episodes is completely unique, offering a completely different atmosphere, roster of enemies and environments. Each episode has a total of 4 levels, 3 normal levels, 1 boss level, taking about a total of 30 minutes to an hour to complete an episode depending on the pace at which you play. With each episode being completely different from the others, it offers an experience that never becomes stale, with none of the episodes outstaying their welcome. It results in you never knowing what you're going to face next, making each episode an exciting discovery from beginning to end. The level design of the episodes is extremely well done and are inspired more by Quake's level design over any other. Most of the levels have what you could call a central hub area, where the progression of the level is separated into numerous paths, but by the end of it you will always end up back at the main central hub, generally after you've acquired the key or keys needed in order to progress further. It is old school design, but it is still as effective today as it was back in the 90s. The levels all feel organic, where you never get confused or feel that the level is designed in a way that forces you down a specific path. They have a natural flow to them that works brilliantly, and you instantly know where you've been and where you need to go next. If there was one issue I would have with the level design, it would be the massive difficulty spike with the Forge and Arcane Expanse. The first 4 episodes are relatively easy, even in the hard difficulty, but come the 5th and 6th, you're given an almighty reality check. All of a sudden you go from being this unstoppable force to being sliced and diced to pieces, blown up and splattered around the place like a new coat of red paint. I would go as far as to say that the first 4 episodes are too easy, resulting in the 5th and 6th episode being a massive shock to the system that you struggle to adjust to at first. There were moments in both episodes where if I hadn't rationed my powerful mana, which is ammunition, I would have had a really hard time progressing. Either the earlier episode difficulty needs to be increased slightly, or the latter 2 episodes need to have their difficulty lowered a bit. It isn't a massive problem or one that ruins the experience, but it is incredibly noticeable. The one other minor issue I would have is that there is no level select option, where players can replay specific levels. Instead they must play through the entire episode from start to finish. It isn't a deal breaker, but it would be nice to have the option to go back and find the secrets in specific levels, as opposed to having to play through the whole episode again, much like done in Dusk. Other than that, however, the level design design of the game is brilliant. It's varied and fluent, making each level as exciting as the last. Of course, it wouldn't be much of an FPS game if it didn't have destructive weapons to destroy your enemies with. There are a total of 7 weapons in a medieval. The first is the Axe of the Black Labyrinth, which is a massive battle axe that you can use to hack, slice and dice weaker enemies with. The second weapon is the Staff of the Azure Orb, which fires homing balls of energy at enemies. The third is Whisper's Edge, a sword that fires a green energy wave the size of the blade that can hit multiple enemies if lined up correctly. Next is Voltride, an electric trident that's main power comes with its overkill. How this works is that when you kill an enemy for a few seconds they will continue to be electrocuted. If you continue to fire at them during this time, it will be considered overkill, and when they explode, a chain lightning effect will blast all enemies in its reach. A weak weapon on its own, but with its overkill power it is extremely effective as a crowd controller. Next is the Celestial Claw, a staff that pulls random planets from time and space, shrinking them down to size, allowing for them to be fired at enemies. This is essentially a medieval's version of a rocket launcher, creating devastating explosive damage that can quickly take down even the tougher of enemies. Then there is the Star of Torment, a mace that fires crystal shards at such force that it can impale enemies to any surface they meet. Think of the Penetrator from Fear, but 100 times more forceful and 10 times more projectiles fired at once. Need I say more? Finally is the Aeternum, a strange, indescribable weapon of massive power. It shoots out a large projectile that travels a small distance before exploding, eradicating any enemies that are within its reach. Each of the weapons, with the exception of the axe, require mana as ammunition. There are 4 mana types in total: blue, green, orange and purple. The Staff of the Azure Orb and the Trident use blue. Whisper's Edge and Star of Torment use green. The Celestial Claw uses orange and the Aeternum uses purple. The availability of the different types of mana compared to the power of the weapon is well balanced. There's plenty of mana for the workhorse weapons, while the more powerful ones have less, but never are you stuck with too little at the same time, keeping the overall difficulty of the game fair. The weapons in a medieval are some of the most creative I've seen in an FPS game. Don't let their appearance deceive you. They are all as impacting and satisfying to use as any chainsaw, super shotgun, assault rifle, rocket launcher and BFG. Never throughout all 6 episodes did I tire of the weapons, as I experimented figuring out what weapons work with what enemies best, as each have their own strengths and weaknesses. But the fun with the weapons doesn't stop there. In the medieval you collect souls from the enemies that you killed, similar to Painkiller. When you collect enough souls you can activate Soul Mode, turning you into a being that equals Superman, the Flash and the Hulk all in one. It increases your overall attack speed and unlocks the superpowers of each of the weapons for a short duration, about 30 seconds or so. This can then be increased by picking up additional souls while Soul Mode is engaged. It turns the axe head into a propeller that can slice even the toughest of enemies into pieces in mere seconds. The Azure Staff fires at a rate of a machine gun. Whisper's Edge shoots a larger energy wave that bounces off walls. The Trident shoots out a constant electrical beam. The Celestial Claw swaps out planets for suns, causing massive nuclear explosions. The Star of Torment fires out the entire mace head that explodes on impact, firing shards in all directions. And finally, the all-powerful Aeternum shoots a black hole that sucks everything within its reach into it, including yourself if you're not careful. Activating Soul Mode is always exciting, as you watch your already powerful weapons just unleash attacks of unrivaled destruction. The one issue I'd have with Soul Mode, however, is that you cannot choose when to activate it. Once you have enough souls to engage the mode, it activates the moment you click the shoot button. This results in you having no control over it, often being forced to use it against a small number of weaker enemies. Simply allowing the player to use it when they need it by pressing the E key or another activation key would be a much better option, as more often than not it gets wasted. But other than that, it is one of the most enjoyable little features of chaos I've seen in a game in a very long time. As for the combat in general, it is exactly what you would expect from an old school FPS game. It is super fast, gruesome, and there are more than enough enemies to unleash your fury on. The melee combat with the axe is great, and the actual shooting with the weapons is spot on, with hit detection registering correctly. And when you mix that solid combat with imaginative weapons and varied enemies the game possesses, you have an exhilarating FPS experience that is a step above the rest. At the end of each level your statistics are totaled up, much like in the older shooters of the 90s. These statistics include kills, secrets found, along with your time versus the power time for the level. Awards are granted to the player for specific accomplishments, such as Killer for killing all enemies, Scholar for finding all messages, Destroyer for breaking all the destructibles, and Speedrunner for finishing a level in less time than the par. These awards don't affect the gameplay in any way, but act as an extra goal for the player to achieve if they wish to do so. The awards are also associated with achievements, with each award having its own achievement to unlock. The awards are a nice little optional addition for those looking for an extra challenge or achievement hunters, and do give some replayability to the levels of the game. The only issue with the awards is that some are glitched at the moment, where they don't unlock their respective achievements, such as Collector, which is where you collect every pickup in the level. Some other achievements are also broken, such as Almighty Power, so achievement hunters should wait until they are fixed before attempting to get them all. But other than that, the awards and achievements work very well. There are a total of 4 difficulty settings in a medieval: easy, medium, hard and evil. Evil difficulty, like in Quake, is hidden away in the difficulty select area and must be found to play, though it isn't too difficult to find. The harder the difficulty, the more enemies there are in a level, along with enemy movement and attack speed being faster. The difficulty settings of the game cater to all skill levels, easy being for those who are looking to play the game for the experience over challenge, medium for those who want some sort of challenge, while hard is for those who want a decent challenge. The evil difficulty, on the other hand, is for veterans of the old school Twitch style shooters, with a much faster pace to the gameplay that puts your dodging skills to the test. To get the real medieval experience, you need to play on evil, but hard difficulty is pretty close to it for those who aren't so fond of the more rapid gameplay. The difficulties as a whole are very well balanced and suit the skill levels they are designed for. So whether you're a veteran of old school shooters or someone trying it out for the first time, a medieval is accessible for all. Finally is the Hordes of Evil mode. This is an optional mode that is available to play that acts as a survival mode. The objective of the mode is to simply last out as many waves of enemies as possible, with each wave becoming more powerful than the last. You start off with just the axe and must find weapons and mana scattered throughout the level. There currently is a total of 2 arenas to play, with a third one still to be developed. Hordes of Evil is a nice little addition that gives players something extra to do when done with all the episodes in the main game. It is fun, but health pickups are a bit too scarce, making it difficult to last any decent length of time, and the health pickups that are present are only small, lessening the possibility of healing even more. But aside from that, the arenas are well designed, easy to navigate, and give plenty of room to maneuver around, creating an intense experience that you'll play over and over again. Overall, the gameplay to a medieval is fast-paced, adrenaline-filled action that not only pays utmost respects to games like Hexen and Heretic, but also brings the gameplay not just to a modern audience, but to a whole new, never-before-seen level. From the solid combat to the small details of specific yet important sound effects to the fluent and easy to navigate level design, a medieval is a game that holds nothing back, and its gameplay is nothing short of spectacular for it. The atmosphere to a medieval is incredible. Throughout the entire game you feel like you're in a place where mere mortals do not belong. A place where the rules of time and space don't exist. Every realm presents a different atmosphere, but each one has one thing in common: that sense of being in an alien place. If there was one game I could compare its atmosphere to, it would be the first Unreal, and the soundtrack definitely shows Andrew Hulshult's inspiration from that game. There's a sense of mystery, danger and intrigue in every level and every musical track. From the mystical feel of the first episode to the more robust and war-heavy tracks of the second, to the epic adventure and expedition feel of the Sacred Path, to the light and vibrant feel of the fourth episode to represent the sun. And then you have the darker, more metallic notes that go with the Forge, and finally a dreamlike quality to go with the otherworldly feel of the Arcane Expanse. Each and every episode is unique both in design and its atmosphere, with a soundtrack that is equally as different and fitting for each. It's a soundtrack that proves Andrew Hulshult is more than capable of making top quality tracks that can still fit in with the atmosphere of the game without them being pure heavy metal, and each and every track he's composed for a medieval is fitting and intensifies the experience tenfold. As amazing as the atmosphere in Hulshult's composed work is for Dusk, a medieval takes everything a whole step further, and I personally believe it is Hulshult's finest work yet, with a medieval having the most gripping atmosphere in a soundtrack since Epic Games' 1998 release of Unreal. It truly is that magical. A medieval has blown me away. From its creative and imaginative design of weapons and enemies, to its incredible level design, magical atmosphere and soundtrack, and solid combat, a medieval is brilliant in every way. It is the FPS game I've waited over 2 decades for. This isn't a game for pansies just because it's medieval fantasy weapons. It is as badass, hardcore, and balls deep in blood, guts and gore as any Doom, Quake, Unreal or Dusk. What minor issues the game does have are quickly forgiven and forgotten, and don't impact the overall enjoyment of the experience. You don't need to be a fan of Hexen or Heretic to enjoy a medieval. Whether you're a demon-slaying Doom veteran, a Quake Lovecraftian fanatic, or a head-banging cultist-slaying Dusk dude, it doesn't matter. A medieval has it all and will exceed all expectations. Whether it is while it is still in early access or you wait until the version 1.0, if you are a fan of old school shooters, a medieval is an absolute must play.